We covered this story earlier in this week. Brittany Gosney is the mom who has been charged with murdering her 6-year-old son, young man by the name of James. Awful story, very sad, and it's something that we have to go through because I think it is important to understand what happened here, just for our understanding as a channel that covers these types of stories. I want to break down what really happened here. Last time we covered this, we talked about the different charges that she was facing, and one of the original charge was the murder charge, and the allegation here was that she intended to murder her son James, 6 years old. And the whole ordeal originated out of an incident at a park, and there was some question about, was she trying to abandon her kids or was she trying to murder her kids? Okay, both awful, both reprehensible, but they're different. One is sort of an abandonment or an involuntary homicide charge or an involuntary manslaughter charge versus intentional murder. Two massively different charges. And so I just wanted to pause on this story and run through this police report. This comes over from the Preble County Sheriff's Office, signed off on, or the sheriff over there is Michael L. Simpson. This was printed on March 1st. And as we can see, the call taker was a woman named Jennifer. Report was taken. We're going to go through this, and I'm going to read you and show you the narrative that was drafted by the officers. So we have a handful of different officers here. We got Michael Simpson, Michael Spittler, Brad Moore, Andrew Blevins, and so on and so forth. We got the response times that have been logged, when the call was assigned, when they were certified to be en route, when they arrived, and when it was completed, although all these times look basically exactly the same. So, they might want to look into that. Here is the computer-aided dispatch records, the command log, this looks like. So you can see clear on scene, alarms. We've got check the stat en route. We've got leaving the scene. Okay, so all these officers are communicating back and forth in this document. We've got Robin Hatfield, Jennifer Petit. We've got Andrew Blevins. They're all sort of communicating back and forth, and not much to glean from this other than you can see the time codes and you can sort of see the progression of who was responding and where. Not too much interesting here, though. We also have this. This is the initial narrative that was drafted by one of the officers, Andrew Blevins. This was drafted and written the day after that it happened. So let's go through this. You'll recall that the murder actually took place on February 27th. Then on February 28th, Brittany Gosney and her boyfriend, James Hamilton, came into the police station and they said, our child is missing. Our child is missing. So the police just instantly sent out a big search. Shortly thereafter, Brittany Gosney, James Hamilton, they admit to the cops, yeah, we killed him. And we didn't know really what happened, but now we have a narrative from the police. So let's read through it. On February 28th, Sergeant Nelson of Middletown Detective Section contacted our dispatch center in reference to a homicide that had possibly occurred in our county. Nelson explained a male and female had come into the Middletown PD, reported a 6-year-old male as missing. Due to the nature of their story, they felt something was not quite right. This is the officers. After questioning the two separately, the female admitted that she had killed the 6-year-old male in Preble County. Sergeant Nelson explained by her description he believed this incident occurred at the Rush Run Wildlife Area with a boat dock. Sergeant Nelson explained Detective McIntosh was going to transport the female to Rush Run. She was going to show them where the incident occurred. I explained I would have a detective and other units meet them at Rush Run. I contacted Detective Fourier and Captain Hatfield to respond to the scene. I also contacted Major Moore, Chief Deputy Spittler, and Sheriff Simpson and informed them of the situation, and all stated they would be responding to the scene. I was on another call and explained I would respond directly after completing that call. Upon arrival at Rush Run, Area Lot 4, I met Preble units and Middletown units. Speaking with detectives, I was able to ascertain what had occurred. The subjects were identified as Brittany Gosney and James Hamilton. 6-year-old male was identified as James Hutchinson. Hutchinson is the biological son of Brittany. Brittany and Hamilton are involved in a romantic relationship. Brittany was on scene at the time. Middletown explained Brittany and Hamilton showed up at the police department around 10 a.m. this morning. So that's Brittany and James Hamilton, her boyfriend. They reported Hutchinson, the son, missing. During conversations with the police, law enforcement became suspicious they were not getting the entire story. They separated Brittany and Hamilton and both provided different stories, which is why they do that, so that they can corroborate stories. Upon further interview, Brittany admitted that she had killed Hutchinson. Brittany stated Hamilton the boyfriend, wanted her to get rid of her kids. On February 27th at approximately 0300 hours, Brittany drove her kids to the Rush Wildlife Area Lot 4. Brittany's kids are 9, 7, and 6. We had some questions about that previously. How old were the other kids in the car? Brittany drove them to the area in a 2005 Dodge Grand Caravan that is registered to Hamilton, the boyfriend. Brittany stated she knew of the area because she and Hamilton had taken the children fishing at this location. Brittany stated she had planned to go get the kids out of the vehicle and to leave them behind as Hamilton had been pressuring her to get rid of the kids. When doing this, the 6-year-old, Hutchinson, grabbed onto the door handle. Brittany slammed the gas trying to leave the kids and drug Hutchinson, possibly running him over. Brittany turned the vehicle around to check on Hutchinson, and he was dead. Brittany then loaded the 2 other children and Hutchinson back into the vehicle and returned to her in Hamilton's residence, 507 in Crawford in Middletown. Hamilton and Brittany placed Hutchinson's body in a spare room beneath a window. At approximately 0300 hours on February 28th, Brittany and Hamilton drove the Dodge Caravan to the bridge that goes over the Ohio River and threw Hutchinson's body into the water below. After some discussion with Sheriff Simpson prosecutor, Detective Fourier, they were assigned to investigate the case jointly with Middletown detectives. Those units left the scene with Brittany to go and identify the area where Hutchinson's body was thrown into the Ohio River. I obtained photographs of the parking lot and suspected scene where he was killed. Major Moore completed a diagram of the area. The immediate area and parking lot was checked. No viable evidence was located. Middletown provided me with a report number. Captain Hatfield later informed me that when they arrived at the location where Brittany states Hutchinson's body was thrown into the river, the water was rough and too rapid to be searched tonight. Captain Hatfield advised they were going to return the morning of March 1 to try and complete the search. The other 2 kids who were present when Hutchinson was killed are also supposed to take part in a forensic interview on the campus of Cincinnati Children's Hospital as well. Due to the conditions not being safe for a water search, detectives returned to Middletown to assist with a search warrant service at the residence and an additional interview of Brittany. See their supplements for additional information. Both Brittany and Hamilton were housed in Middletown jail. And so we talked about this case, and I'm not sure that this changes anything. I think that this is largely what we had thought about. You know, the distinction here was between the intentional murder charge and sort of the reckless manslaughter charge. You know, did Brittany, when she showed up there, as awful as what she did she intend to kill them? Well, it doesn't sound like it. It sounds like she intended to drop them off and leave them, abandon them, which in and of itself is its own crime and something terrible. But did she intentionally intend to murder James? This doesn't make it sound like that. Now, she can still be charged with a murder violation, but it's just it's a lower tier of murder. It's not intentional murder. It's something like, well, she was committing a felony. She was abandoning her children in the middle of a parking lot at 0300 hours. It's not a good thing to do. That is a felonious act, and somebody died in the commission of the felonious act, so that would be more analogous to felony murder. So they could make that claim. Or they could make a claim that what she was doing was so reckless, sort of like what we saw in the Chauvin case, sort of a reckless indifference, a reckless disregard for her life, and indifference to the wellness of another person, right? Leaving a 6-year-old in the middle of a park by the Ohio River where it's raging and the waters are flying around. It may not have been intentional to kill him, but you could sort of foresee that happening, right? The kid's going to go and get injured. He's going to fall into the river. He's going to go find a stranger who's going to kill him. He's going to, wander around in the wilderness until he dies from exposure. Very reckless, but was it intentional murder? I don't know. So we're going to see where this ultimately goes. It is an awful case. Just breaks my heart to hear these types of stories. These are by far the hardest cases to work on as a criminal defense attorney. Nothing's really even close. When you have just an innocent kid, and you're also talking about 9-year-olds and 7-year-olds, and they're all, they just got to watch their brother die, and then mom throws a body in the back of the car, and then the kids get hauled off. I mean, just a gruesome, horrendous story. And, it opens up a good question. Brittany Gosney is going to be claiming mental incapacity. We've already seen that from her. She brought that up at her arraignment. And the county attorney, as is usually the case, just sort of said, she understands what's going on here. Okay, don't buy that garbage. She knows what she did. She intended to do it, and on and on and on. But you got to ask yourself, does this sound like a mentally competent person? Does this sound like somebody who has everything there? That's not an excuse for her behavior. Okay, just because people have heard of the insanity defense or the competency defense and it sort of makes them feel gross inside, doesn't mean that it's not legitimate. There are people out there who are mentally not well. And if we can identify that as the appropriate cause of this horrendous thing, then maybe we can do something about it. Maybe we can focus on getting people more mental health, mental wellness, so that this type of stuff doesn't happen. But if we just wake up and say, well, she's just an evil person who is possessed by the devil, which may be true, I don't know. Well, that doesn't give us many tools to work with at that point. It's not a very useful way to analyze this case. Okay, well, she's an evil person or just with the devil and all right, another dead kid. So what do you want us to do about that? All right, we'll lock her up, give her the death penalty, throw her in prison for 150 years. All right. But what about the next time this happens? Is there anything we can do as a society to maybe talk about our justice system and help solve these issues rather than just process cases? That's kind of what I'm interested in. Let's jump into some locals.com questions. We have Jeremy Matrita says, hats off to the officers for interrogating the parents enough to get them to admit the truth. Yeah, I agree with you on that, Jeremy. Very, very excellent police work by those officers. And I'm not being facetious about that. I mean, I genuinely mean that. Very good work. Probably not anything that's groundbreaking. I think it's kind of obvious if they come in and there is a missing kid and they don't report him for 24 hours or 36 hours or whatever it was. I think you start to go, yeah, that's a little bit weird. And you can dive into it, but I don't want to take away from the cops. I shouldn't have even said that. Cops, they did a great job here. I'm glad that that this is under control because they have two other kids, 9 and 7. What would have happened to the other kids had the cops not stepped in? I'm glad that they are okay. They're gonna have to find new homes. It's a mess, just awful stuff. Sharon Quinney says, I just can't stop thinking about this case. A mother's instinct toward her kids is really powerful. It would take some extraordinary circumstances, pressure, abuse, drugs, mental illness to drive a woman to kill her kids. Yeah, and that's exactly, you beat me to it on that, Sharon. That's exactly what I was going after. This is something something is just instinctually wrong, or how could you do that? Reading this, the only thing that really changes is I think maybe there is something to her claim that she is mentally incapacitated in some way. We'll see. We went through the rules in Ohio. She is entitled to a hearing. She's going to meet a psychologist, psychiatrist. They're going to do their own evaluation. They're going to see if she's competent to stand trial, and we'll see where that goes. Pinky2 says, oh my goodness, the story and hearing her part alone and hearing her part alone is unbearable. The other children will be marked forever. I agree. It sounds like manslaughter or something, but the boyfriend appears to sound involved. If there's any credible evidence about him, coercion of her to get rid of her kids, he need to be tried too. Yeah, he is being charged with a crime. He's being charged with moving around the body and sort of, disturbing a corpse. And I agree. If he was pushing her to drop the kids off and abandon them, there's some criminal liability there as well. And he's not gonna escape culpability here. So awful story, but we'll probably follow this one along too. So stick around. Thank you for those locals.com questions.